Well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and thank you so much to this panel of friends and colleagues and leaders in this space. Thank you to Concordia for organizing a panel on this topic. It's a front and center issue for so many of us, and we're looking forward to getting into it. We're going to spend the next 20 minutes talking about migration, mobility, and market growth. And the group of individuals here are really unparalleled thought leaders on this issue. Sitting to my right is Minister Vassilis Kikilias, the Minister of Shipping and Insular Policy of Greece, Gideon Maltz, CEO of the Tent Partnership for Refugees, Director General Amy Pope, Director General of the International Organization for Migration, and of course Rich Verma, Chief Administrative Officer of MasterCard. This is a topic, of course, as we know, at the macro level that really is front and center globally in this country and elsewhere. It's also a very personal issue, and I want to acknowledge that. I'm the son of a refugee myself, and so we know how personal and significant this issue is for so many of us. And so as we get into it, we're looking forward to the conversation. We also acknowledge there's an app up for questions from the audience at the end if there's time for that. But I think we'll get into it. And so we'll jump in with our first set of questions. And the first, if I could, to Director General Pope. When you took office, you really set a vision, and it was, and I'll quote it, was migration works when it's done right. Mm-hmm. We've had some time to reflect on that and to see the impact of that. What does right look like, and who needs to be at the table to make that happen?
So right is not what's happening around the world right now. And I actually don't mean at this particular moment. I mean even over the last 20 years or so. We've tended to look at the issue of migration and human mobility in silos, which means that if you're here in the United States, you're looking at the role of the Department of Homeland Security, or perhaps you're looking at the Border Patrol. If you are anywhere else in the world, you tend to look at it often in terms of security or border management. We're not thinking about the movement of people, how the movement of people has happened since the dawn of human civilization, and what other factors might be at play globally. So, for example, many parts of the world are aging. I'm from Western Pennsylvania. We realize we're both from Western Pennsylvania. At one point, there was a big billboard as you left Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that said, "Will the last person to leave Pittsburgh please turn off the lights?" But Pittsburgh right now is a vibrant city, and it's because they've had a lot of infusion of talent, people from around the world at every single skill level. So thinking about migration as a catalyst for development, no matter where you are in the world, whether you're here in North America, whether you're in South America, in the islands, in Asia, et cetera. So right means let's look at this issue holistically. Let's match people, let's match talent with opportunities. Let's do so in a safe and legal and regular way. And let's stop looking at it just at the point where people cross borders.
Yeah, that's great. Thinking about that opportunity and where we see the future, that path to prosperity, which I think is so clear. As we think about, Rich, that path to prosperity and we think about the role the private sector plays in that, MasterCard has been a driver of inclusion for decades now. We saw an aspiration which is on track to bring 1 billion individuals into the formal economy. You're in such a unique vantage point, former Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Department of State, Chief Administrative Officer of MasterCard, now one of the largest payment companies in the world. What is the private sector's role in this space, and what is MasterCard really doing to drive in this?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for this panel. It's such an important topic right now, and it's a real honor to be here with these panelists, especially Amy. I learned so much from over the last few years when I was Deputy Secretary. You know, I went to every corner of the world, 77 embassies and consulates, 65 countries in a 2-year period. And what you see is an unprecedented level of migration. 125 million people on the move, 35 million climate migrants. So we can argue about the politics of it, and I know society gets bogged down in it, but we have to really focus on how to solve this issue, how to meet people where they are and deal with the crisis that they faced and face today. And what we have seen is that this is where governments, private sector, civil society, foundations need to come together, because governments can't solve this by themselves. The international kind of NGO community can't solve it by themselves. So what can a company like MasterCard do? When you look at the problem that refugees are having, first issue is, where do they settle? Where do they live? Second issue, how do they have access to the modern banking system? How do they get access to their accounts? How do they get access to benefits that may be coming to them? So, for example, for the where should we live, we developed a specific app for Ukrainian refugees that were ending up in Poland, in Moldova, in Romania, et cetera. And through this app, we were able to pull together data of where there would be job opportunities, where there was affordable living, and 300,000 people actually used the app, and 20% of the Ukrainian refugees were able to resettle in a more efficient, thoughtful way, where they were welcomed into communities across Central and Eastern Europe. On the benefits transfer question, again, we've worked with the German government, we've worked with governments in Africa and Latin America to actually, on one prepaid card, to be given to people as they are resettling or just trying to survive. And so for program after program, we have been so proud to partner with IOM and with other agencies, again, to actually try to solve what's confronting individuals and their families at these moments of crisis. Technology can really do that. Financial inclusion can do that. You mentioned our commitment to bring a billion people into the modern digital economy. We've seen the impact of what happens when you are unbanked, underbanked, and disconnected. It cuts you off. It subjects you to trafficking and smugglers and all kinds of bad things that happen. We want people to be empowered to have the choice for their future and their destiny, and we think MasterCard plays a big role in that.
A key word, empowered, really, and we think about how bringing the solutions and the tools of a company like MasterCard to some of the most vulnerable populations globally. I think about Tent and Gideon. I think about how Tent has really brought that in that matching form, right? You have led such a remarkable journey of an organization that has matched some of the most vulnerable individuals globally, refugees, with opportunities. You've done that by bringing in private sector partners in many ways. So I'm curious, how have you done that? What are the lessons that you've really taken from that, and how do we bring on more private sector partners to drive this together?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be lying if I said that when Tent was founded in 2016, we had a model that worked then and then. What we had then was a conviction that we had to bring more businesses into this issue at a time that very, very few companies beyond MasterCard were involved. And we had a lot of trial, even more error over those years, trying to figure out different ways that we could engage businesses, until we eventually zoomed in on the sort of big unlock of work for refugees, where we saw that getting a job was so critical in a refugee's new life. It was so critical to their community, to the government, and it was a critical opportunity for companies. And since we made a sort of pivot about 3 years ago to really zoom in on that, we've grown exponentially to more than 500 global companies, deepening our work with these companies in about a dozen markets in Europe and Americas. And the reason we've been able to do that is that we are solving a critical business need. In all of these countries, most companies struggle to hire all the roles they need in the locations they need them on the timelines they want them. And that is a short-term problem, and they realize it's only going to get worse with aging populations and low birth rates. And so they see a critical business need, and we've been able to persuade them and provide them support so that they can see that if they make fairly modest investments in how they source, screen, interview, hire, and integrate refugees, that they get access to an incredibly talented, motivated, and loyal workforce, and that is solving a critical business need. And so more and more companies have signed up for that, and even with the political headwinds, continue to be super committed to it.
That's great. If I can ask a follow-up, as you think about your peer organizations and how they're trying to reach out to it in this moment of so much change in that to private sector organizations, what's really that path? Is it the articulation of a value proposition to companies that really, or how do you see that as that conversation?
So I think the way Tent is wired is a little bit unique. We work with amazing nonprofit partners. In the US alone, there's hundreds of nonprofits that work with refugees. And we all see the same problem, which is refugees, even though they're work authorized, when they arrive, they struggle to get jobs because companies ignore their resumes and they don't do well in interviews, and companies won't take the opportunity, won't take the chance. Most nonprofits try to solve that problem by providing better support to refugees. So they invest a lot of effort in helping them build better resumes and helping them better prepare for interviews and helping them learn English so that they can have a better chance of getting the job. We're somewhat unique, and those are critical services. We're somewhat unique in thinking that companies themselves can solve almost all those challenges. And so rather than improving a refugee's resume, we can get a company to read the resume differently so they're not discarding talented people. Rather than preparing refugees better for interviews, we can get companies to conduct interviews in a way that's going to be less likely to exclude qualified candidates. Rather than investing a huge amount of time in helping somebody learn English, companies can actually accommodate people who may not be fluent in English on the factory floor with all sorts of workarounds, knowing that they will learn English within a couple of months. And so for us, working with other nonprofits, we think that's the big unlock, that companies can actually solve all those problems and have a business incentive to do so.
That's great. Doing well by doing good, as some of us at the MasterCard team might offer. I love it. Thank you for that. Minister Kikilias, Greece. Greece has been at the front lines of migration in a decade-long journey. The government has offered so many lessons globally for how to manage that. What are some of those lessons that you see that other countries can really take as we think about that journey that Greece has gone through over this decade-long journey?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Concordia, for the kind invitation and this exceptional panel. We have worked with IMO, we have worked with private multinational companies and other governments, of course. But let me put a framework, a partially different framework on what we're discussing. Majorities here in the United States, in Europe, and also in my country, Greece, are not exactly pinpointed to where the discussion is going. Why? We differ refugees seeking shelter, children, unaccompanied women, etc., and we host them, we cherish them, we feed them, we hospitalize them, and this is global treaties, and this is without a doubt from immigration. You see, 2015, from the Turkish borders across our isles and through Greece and then to Northern Europe, 1 million illegal immigrants passed. That's 1/10 of our population. It was almost impossible for us in the islands or in the mainland, facing austerity measures, to be able to deal with that. And you see that the vast population here in the US has decided that this is not the case. They want security in their borders. They want a better life for the average American family. They want legal immigration, people with our green cards coming to the United States of America, also the same thing we want in Greece, and seeking job opportunities and prospering. And yes, this is the land of the free and the land of opportunity. And I've seen many, many people, Greeks, come to the United States of America 2 or 3 or 4 generations behind, actually by boat, maybe 40 to 50 days to travel to the United States of America. And they did it, and they prospered, and now they're huge and totally respected. But the proper way, the legal way, because this is not a place, and Greece is not a place. It's a country. This is a country. Greece is a country. We have borders, actual borders and maritime borders, and I feel that this is why societies are shifting, and they're obliging their leadership, political leadership or social leadership, to shift with them too. So better working conditions and working possibilities for the local population, security, our wives and children to be able to go out at night and walk freely without a problem, and then the possibility to be able to have a better life than the previous generation and give birth to more children and prosper like that. In terms of refugees, we shelter everybody. And the Greek Coast Guard has searched and rescued millions of people all these years. There's no doubt about that. But immigration is divided to illegal immigration, and nobody can enter Greece or Europe, or they shouldn't, without the permission, and to legal immigration through papers. And yes, of course, we want and we need people to work in a touristic sector, in our construction sector, in the agricultural sector. And I think that This balance we must find again. Because sometimes policymakers and opinion leaders and opinion makers are not exactly tuned in to the rest of the society, to the working people, to the average American family, for example. The average American family didn't feel good at all when factories left Detroit or Ohio or wherever and they didn't have a job. Job opportunities are back here. And also, in regard to security, it is key essence for the average family and for civilized people and for societies to have security, to feel that your children can go to university and they're not in danger and in threat, to feel that you can walk out in the street and there is no problem. Unfortunately, the percentage of illegal immigrants that are linked to crime are higher here in this country, in Greece and in Europe also. So I'm not radical, I'm not saying anything crazy, I'm just saying the average policy for every problem. I think it suits civilization, the American people, Greek people better. That's why they seek it, and that's why they vote like that also.
I understand that, Minister, and thank you for that reply. With just a couple of minutes to go, when we think about the future, and we think about those policies that you referred to, Minister, what is that key action that a private sector partner or a policymaker right now should have front and center when they're thinking about that quick action they can take to deliver results in this issue that's such a primary topic for so many countries and so many populations? Rich, maybe I can start with you in just that,
we'll
30 seconds.
go very quick. Look, this is personal to me. Not only were my parents immigrants to Western Pennsylvania, but my mother and grandmother were refugees displaced from their homes during the partition of India and Pakistan, traveled 500 or 600 miles, and were resettled and were welcomed, and then were welcomed into this country. I think about the greatness of America. I think about the Marine security guards that guarded the U.S. Embassy. Many of them came here to this country as refugees, didn't speak English as a first language, but yet they were willing to dedicate their lives to defend the country. So maybe take slight issue with what the American people think, because we were welcomed into Western Pennsylvania in 1971 and embraced. And that is the vision of America that I believe in and that we strongly support. And the most important thing I would say is this connection to the mainstream digital economy as a tool that we can continue to work on at MasterCard.
Thank you for that.
So I think there's something in what we've just heard which really goes to creating the safe and legal pathways for people to enter into the job market with the appropriate documentation, being paid a fair wage, having the same standards of work as anybody else who's coming into the job market. When we rely on a system that is effectively irregular migrants, that's when we start to see the abuse of people, the abuse of systems, and the exploitation of some of the most vulnerable. So starting to right-size an approach is critical to prosperity around the world.
Thank you for that.
I would just double down on that. When there's a bad way to do it and a good way to do it, when it's done well and when refugees are resettled in the US legally, they have lower crime rates than Americans, they have higher workforce rates than Americans, they go on to found some of America's most iconic companies, and they can be such important contributors to our society, but it has to be done well to sustain political support and to help refugees.
That's great. Minister, if I could.
I don't disagree with any of the above. Actually, I feel compatible with all this. I just want to pinpoint that, unfortunately, wars are not going to cease.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, climate crisis either. On the contrary, there will be people seeking food and shelter and water. And this is basic. So we have to rethink of the framework of measures or the pipeline of decisions taken in order to be able to keep a balance in societies together. Because suddenly when people are not blended in the right way, you see, unfortunately, after 2 or 3 decades or 1 or 2 generations, this pops up in the worst possible way. So once again, let's rethink about the policies that are going to be compatible with the people and their actual needs.
I'm very grateful to you. I'm conscious time is over. we look forward to continuing the partnership that's been built here across public and private entities here and to tackling this issue that really is at the center of so much for this world. So thank you so much to our panelists, and thanks so much to the audience.